Welcome to Empowering Seniors. I'm your host, Katherine Ambrose. Today we're talking about the power of thought. And to help me out with this episode is a very special guest, Diana Kokoska, a thought leader and a brand new author. Diana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's such a great opportunity to be here, Katherine.
Well, I think it's a great opportunity for us to have you. So I'm familiar with you from the real estate industry because you've had quite a real estate career, and you have been a leader within our industry for so long and ran a large coaching division and just really known for leadership. And this is your first book, so
It is.
So tell us a little bit about what drives you to share this wisdom and to work so hard.
You know, it's all about adding value. That's what keeps me and gets me up in the morning and keeps me going. In fact, at 7 a.m., my phone has an alarm on it, Katherine, and it says, "What will you do today to add value to others?" And then at 7 p.m., it goes off and it says, "What did you do today to add value to others?" So I kind of keep myself accountable to that. And I think it started back in the grocery store. Now, when I was 8, I had advanced up to being the checker. Very small town, only grocery store in town, so we knew everybody. Well, as they would come through and they would have, say, ice cream in the cart, I would look down and I was to say, "Oh, do you want ice cream topping like chocolate or caramel or strawberry?" Or if they had those, maybe I'd say, "You know, I heard cantaloupe is really good with ice cream." Or what about root beer floats? Do the kids want some root beer? I mean, we were always to add something to what they'd already purchased. So I think I grew up desiring to add more. And because I value people, I desired to add value to them.
That is really something. So this was your parents' grocery store.
Yes.
And I read your book, so I know you started maybe when you were 5.
Yes.
And they had you kind of hawking magazines, arranging the magazines.
Yes.
And
I think Amazon learned from my dad, because he would say if somebody comes in, like a woman picks up a bridal magazine with a bride on it, I was to find anything that had a bride on it and say, "If you like those, you'll like these too," right?
That's really good. Talk about learning sales early in your career. But what's interesting is the idea of adding value. What does that do to us when we're always thinking about how we're helping other people?
Well, first of all, it keeps our mindset in a great place. Gratitude, humility. It actually brings confidence too, because as you're helping other people, some will say thank you, some may not. Love them anyway, no matter what they do, right? And as you add value, though, it gives you a self-esteem inside, and kind of like patting yourself on your own back, so to speak, if I was able to help somebody else today. And service is what a true fulfilled life is all about.
What inspired you to work so hard? Well, I know public television played a little role in getting you started. Can you share that?
Yes, it did. That's why I love PBS. Always will, right? I was up with one of my kids. They were not feeling well, and as much as I was working at it, I was having a hard time staying awake. So I turned on PBS. They happened to have an auction going. And this auction, I was watching and taking care of my child, and all of a sudden, a real estate course came on. Oh, Katherine, that was music to my ear. I could never afford a real estate course. They were $1,200 back in the day, and that was a lot of money. I bid $50 because that's all I could afford. And I thought, how crazy is this? In fact, I almost didn't pick up the phone to make my bid. But I heard my mom and dad in the back of my head saying, "Nothing ventured, nothing gained." So I went ahead and I bid on it. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. I think that's why I won. But I was going to real estate school, and I was so excited. Then I went to real estate school, and the guy quit after 5 classes. And as you know, it takes a lot more than 5 classes. But I called the state, and I begged them to let me take the test, because I couldn't afford to go back to another school, or I didn't want to wait the 6 weeks till they found a new instructor. Lo and behold, they let me take it. And thank goodness it was mostly math, because I'd majored in physics and math in college. Whizzed through it. I was on my way to be a realtor. Then the next challenge came. Denver, Colorado. It was a man's world back in those days of real estate. And I went to the top real estate company because I knew they'd hire me. I was such a great salesperson because I'd put myself through college selling. They said, they wouldn't even interview me. They said, we already have our woman, Emma Curtis was her name. Then I went to Moore & Company, the second largest company. They said, we already have Marilyn Getch. You can tell how that's etched in my mind. I remember the names. 12 offices later, I finally find somebody that will allow me to hang my license with them. And I was so appreciative. Next morning I woke up and I went, what did I do? I can't even afford a babysitter. And here I am, I'm supposed to be selling real estate. So I put my kids in a little red wagon, a radio flyer. They went in class, right? And I went door to door. Sold 104 homes my first year when the agents were selling 5 back in the day. And people went, how'd you do it? I said, first of all, nobody told me I couldn't. Too many times we listen to what other people tell us we can or cannot accomplish in our life. The second thing was I went out and met the people. And because I chose to add value to them, I was doing things for them way beyond real estate. Oh, you need to find a rental? Oh, let me find that for you. Oh, you need this? Let me find that for you. And then I did something that a lot of our listeners may not like. I decided Christmas was coming. I found out who believed in Santa Claus, Catherine, and who didn't. The ones that did, I said, I will have Santa Claus with me between this time and this time on your block. And we went door to door, Santa Claus and I. And we met the kids. And we gave them a little coloring book with Santa Claus. And Santa Claus told them to go to bed early, you know, on Christmas Eve. And then I gave them my business card and said, now, if your mom and dad ever want to buy or sell a house, you remember, I know Santa Claus. Those kids took that card and I said, don't ever put that card where you don't know where it is, you know? Anyway, yes, I love kids. I got to know them, their families. That's how it all came about. That's from PBS.
And you were creative right out of the get-go.
Well, my book says you can't get to better until you get to different. So what are we going to do different? And as we get older, when you said this is my first book, yeah, in my 70s, I'm starting to write. What can we do that's different that we've never done before? And I think this is when we really get going in our 70s. Who knows what we have left in us, right? However God wants to use us.
What about how we think caught your attention early on?
Well, it's very interesting. We had 4 kids in the family and a cousin that lived with us. So getting ready for school in that one bathroom was chaos. We had to leave at 5:30 because we worked at the grocery store before school. Every one of us had 15 minutes. And if you were in the first position, yeah, you had to get up earlier, yet you knew you were getting ready. If you were in that dreaded number 5 spot, Catherine, can you imagine? No, it was awful because anybody that had taken a minute over was eating away from the time that you had. So my brother's in before. He's number 4, I'm 5, and I am having a fit because he has gone over his time. I am absolutely fuming at this point. And I take this rat tail comb. I don't know if you've ever done this. I took the door, I stuck that rat tail comb in there, and I popped the lock really easy, and I was going to give him a piece of my mind. I was so upset, and I walked in, and he was laying on the floor, and he looked like he was dead. And I got to tell you, I let out a scream that I know they could hear the scream around the world, right? At least around the neighborhood, and Mom and Dad came running, and we didn't know what was going on. Pretty soon they were in an ambulance on their way from Vernal, Utah to Salt Lake City, Utah. And the dreaded news came back that he had a brain tumor in the base of his brain. Now, it's not so much, yes, they're bad today, yet they've advanced so far. Back in the day, they didn't know that much. And the hospitals did everything they could. They operated the best they could. They didn't have rehab. They sent him home. And Mom and Dad, in their infinite wisdom, bought a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Now, you and I know what that is. If younger people are watching this, they have no idea what a reel-to-reel is. But I would say a word. He would say the word. We'd rewind it, play it back. I'd say the word, he'd say the word. It was painstaking. We got to a point, though, that we started giving him children's books to read. And one of those, ironically, was The Little Engine That Could. And when he kept saying, I think I can, I think I can, I kept wondering, is that true? Is it really true that we think we can do something and actually will that into existence? And so I went on this quest. I started studying the brain. And Larry helped me a lot. In fact, he learned how to walk and talk 4 different times in his life through being in comas and kidney transplants and all sorts of things. And then my sister comes along, and lo and behold, they discover a brain tumor, only hers is in the limbic system, between the neocortex and the limbic system of the brain. And now I get to learn a whole new part of the brain, the learning part, the action part, where Larry's was all about the intuition and creativity and who he was being. And that's what got me started on all these things that happen within our own mind and how we train our mind to be whoever we desire to be.
It's so interesting how we can be purposeful and maybe change our thinking and behavior and accomplish more than what we might ever think. Let's say you are in your senior years. You still can make a big difference in your life.
Well, you have so much wisdom. Why do we want that wisdom to go for nothing, right? I mean, just to our grandkids, which is pretty doggone good, yet why not share it with the world? Start being a mentor for other people. If you've been a leader, maybe a CEO, president of a company, then maybe coaching the kids in high school to learn leadership. There's a gentleman that is great at finance, and he wrote a small book, and he's now teaching high school kids about how to live when they start getting a job. Live on 70%, give 10% away, and save 20% to invest. What a great concept. We have so much to give back. Instead of just thinking of ourselves and we're getting older and this part of my body hurts and what am I going to do to sleep the entire 8 hours or whatever, let's start thinking about what could we do? What do we have? The gift that God gave us, let's open it back up and give it to the world.
I love that. And I think that keeps you just happier knowing that you are doing something of value and you are sharing your wisdom.
Well, one of the things is a lot of kids want to go from success to success, and they don't realize that it's literally success, failure, 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 success, failure, failure, failure. In the book, I call it the adaptive learning model. We learn something, we implement it, we fail at it, then we find a better way. We learn that way, implement it, fail a little bit more. And so it's always about becoming more than we currently are. And it's not about having more. Notice I said that, because a lot of people in the story of their life, they want to have what somebody else has so they can do what that person does, so they can be like that person. And then there's other people, I call them the villains of the world, that say you got to do, work, 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 work. And if you do enough, then you'll have enough, and then you can be successful. When we really are taught and understand that you've got to be the person that can do what needs to be done so we can have what we desire to have. So it's literally be, do, have. Not have, do, be, or do, have, be.
That reminds me of John Maxwell, which I know is a mentor of yours and someone that you do a lot with. So,
well, John's taught me a lot. And going back to the seniors, one of the things that comes to mind is, are you a reservoir or are you a river? You know, a reservoir keeps all the water for itself. In essence, all the knowledge that you've accumulated over your years, you're going to just keep it to yourself. You'd rather watch TV or do something else than give back. Yet if you're a river, you're constantly flowing. You're constantly giving back. And so I'm just going to challenge everybody to figure out what could they give back right now in their life to other people that would help others take this world a little bit further than it is right now.
And then when you see that you are helping others, that gives you joy. And like you said, you stop thinking about your own issues.
Well, and you feel more fulfilled. You have a purpose in life. And when there is no purpose, people perish, right?
We know that purpose is at the heart of everything. And it's really important to hang on to that purpose,
Yes.
and hang on to goals that you want to achieve.
Right. And sometimes people stop having goals, don't they? They just think, oh, you know, what else is there? No, there's so much more out there.
What are some of the things that you're thinking about for your future?
Well, I'm writing another book. We have a big event coming up in March where we're going to be raising money to buy books for kids all over the world to teach them values. In fact, been going into Guatemala for 10 years teaching values to kids, and the kids take the books home, teach the values to their parents, and of course the John Maxwell Foundation goes in and teaches businesses values, help their culture. Do you know that the crime rate has gone down 10% already in that country? Wouldn't it be great if we went back to the values that we so hold dear to our hearts and taught those values and actually led with those values, teaching others to discover what their values are? Because our values may be different, yet they're valuable to us. And do we share those with everyone? I have a value chapter. In fact, one of the ladies that was an advanced reader like you are of my book, she called the other day and she said, oh, Diana, I have spent a week on the values chapter, and I've read it and reread it, and I read it to my husband, and I've done all the exercises that you told me. I never dreamed how much knowing my values would actually help my life. And of course, I was thrilled because it was adding value to her.
Yeah, it has to be really cool to hear how people are really diving in deep. Because I know you had to dive deep in order to put it all together. What kind of research did you do for the book?
Years of research. I mean, actually started when I was young, some of the stories that I tell in the book. The biggest thing, though, that I found when I Googled mindset, I found there were 150 mindsets that were listed. Well, that blew my mind. I had no idea. And growing up, I always heard, well, have a positive attitude. Attitude is the difference maker. Yet, were you ever told to have a positive mindset? I never was. Now, in sports, they talk mindset. And in business, they talk attitude. And I went, what's the difference? There's a huge difference. The research showed me that attitude is in our conscious mind and mindset is in our subconscious mind. So when I thought about this, attitude, being conscious, is our goal setter. But mindset is in the unconscious mind and is our goal getter. So these two have to be in alignment. Well, how do you get them in alignment when the attitude, you can change this fast, and mindset takes so long? And if there's 150 of them, so I started narrowing it down. I started watching top leaders and reading books like the Bible, looking, what kind of characteristics, what mindset did these people have? And I narrowed it down to 62, way too many. 34, way too many. I now in the book have 7 that limit us and 7 that liberate us. And the interesting part is all of us have a little bit of both. And Katherine, it's like a coin. In physics, they call it the law of duality. But let's take a coin. It has heads and it has tails, and they're compressed together. That's like our mindset. We have a little bit of limiting and a little bit of liberating. But which one are you focusing on? The limiting mindset? Have you trained your brain that way? Or the liberating mindset? So that got me going on an assessment. You can take the mindset assessment and find out on a bar chart or a pie chart what percentage you have of each and what you can do to help train your brain to go from a limiting mindset to a more liberating mindset. Well, as I think about this, let's take you have a judgmental mindset, but your attitude is positive. You will express that judgment in a way that's a little bit more positive, not quite as harsh as if you had a negative mindset. Let's say you have a curiosity mindset, then your attitude will determine which questions you'll actually ask people in that curiosity state. So these two work together simultaneously. I know I've talked a lot about them. I get passionate about when I think I could help somebody, though, make their life better.
What's the value or importance in asking good questions?
Well, you only get answers to the questions you ask. So I want good answers. I want to learn. And I have like 20 questions that I will ask people, great people that I meet, because I have been very, very fortunate to meet like Oprah and, well, John Maxwell for 25 years has been my mentor, but Ed Bastian over Delta, J-Lo, my goodness, so many people I can't even begin to think. Zig Ziglar, Norman Vincent Peale, Jim Rohn, so many. Do you have questions that we actually write out and carry with us or have in our mind that, man, if I meet somebody, I'm going to ask those questions, right? And sometimes they're just fun. Here's the best one, though, that I was taught by John. Who do you know that I should know? It's a great question. I've got to meet a lot of great people that way with that one question.
That's amazing. That's a good question for anyone to ask, no matter what's going on with their life, because you never know who has an answer for you. So if you can get to know people that others think perhaps you should know, and you'll stay curious, no telling what kind of answers you'll find.
Yeah, and no telling what they'll give to you that could absolutely change the direction of your life.
You talk in the book about one conversation can change your life.
Oh,
Have you experienced that?
Well, Jim Rohn saying, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That was a big life changer for me. Zig Ziglar saying, if your thinking is stinking, you need a checkup from the neck up, which meant I had to change my thoughts. So when you start hearing little tidbits of things, like you've got to be bigger on the inside than you are on the outside, meaning that growth comes from inside out. Those do change your life when you really start thinking about how am I going to implement that into my life. And the thing that research showed me, 95% of the people want something more in their life. Only 5% of the people will do something about it.
Do you think that's because they're not sure what to do?
I do. I believe that that's part of it. I also believe that maybe they don't think they deserve it. I have a saying, you get what you deserve in your imagination. So if you're telling yourself you don't deserve it, you'll make yourself right. Now, there's this little part. If I get too technical, just stop me. It's called the reticular activating system. It's a part of our brain. It's right back here near the cerebellum, and it literally is our Google search engine. When you put Google in and you say you want to know something, it only shows us all those blue things that have to do what we said we wanted to know. It doesn't show us everything in the computer, right? Well, when we tell our RAS we want something, it goes out to find it for us. And if something happens that could help us get what we really wanted, we told ourselves we couldn't have it, we won't even notice it. For example, in real estate, because you've sold real estate. Let's say you say, oh, nobody wants to sell their home. Your RAS will say, you're right, I'll make sure you don't find anybody that wants to sell their home. You're out at a restaurant, you'll never hear the person right next to you talking about selling their home because you told your brain you don't want to hear about it.
The mind is a powerful thing. We've heard that before.
Very powerful thing.
Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge on how we can do some exercises and some real thinking that might create changes for us. We appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching. If you have questions about this topic or anything else that we cover, you can reach us at 316-686-4500 or email us at empoweringseniors@kpts.org. I'm Katherine Ambrose, and I'll see you next time on Empowering Seniors.